Dr. Spears, thank you very much for making time
Absolutely.
for this interview.
It's wonderful to be here.
I learned that you had a very, very colorful and fascinating background.
Really? I think we take crayons sometimes, you know, with the children, but yes, I've had the opportunity to do many things.
You were here in China in 1988, and that was 36 years ago.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Teaching in
Yes.
Peking University.
Yes.
Was that fun? What were the main questions, were the first questions they asked you?
Well, it was not about politics, it was not about the economy, it was not about communication skills, because that's what I was teaching. Communication skills. They wanted to ask my son Eric a question. Oh, and I had to turn to Eric and say, is that okay, Eric? And Eric said, he was a high school senior, and he said,
Right.
I guess so. And so we allowed them to, they asked him.
They are about the same age.
Yeah, right, by 2 years, maybe a year, 2 years difference. And they said, you are wearing blue jeans. Are they Levi jeans? You are, do you know about the Beatles? And do you know what kind of music do you listen to? And when you were in school, what? So there was this dialogue that went on, and I, the teacher, just stepped back and watched the new generation that wanted to communicate so much, and I watched it in action. And I knew from a greater standpoint that if our governments would allow our citizens and our young people to get together, there would be wonderful reactions.
It would be easier for them to communicate.
Exactly.
Your uncle was a member of the Flying Tigers.
Well, let's talk about that, okay? There's that story, right?
Yes, this amazing story, legendary story of Flying Tigers
Yes.
helped and supported
Right.
China
Right.
during World War II.
World War II.
And you yourself, actually, as we just discussed, you've been supporting and also initiating a lot of cultural exchange programs between China and the US, helping the two
Right.
countries' people to know each other.
Yes.
So how would you describe your families and also your own connection with China?
Well, let me go back to my uncle, right? And that was a happenstance that I discovered that. I was in Kunming, and they were Flying Tigers, and I was at the Pilots Club, and we were looking at American soldiers, airmen. He was not a pilot. And I looked and I thought, wow, that looks like my uncle. He and those others came to China to help the Chinese people. They felt a bond that was taking place there. We today have to have the same bond. It may not be the same kind of thing, Flying Tigers, but I do think that there's the opportunity for us to be kind of flying tigers in education, that we go out and we help students and bring students together. All those young men who came from the United States came here for a purpose in mind, and that was to do the right thing. And that's what the important message is. We do the right thing. And as we look at today's society, we have to do the right thing. The countries have to be able to allow the young people to get together. And that would be the right thing.
But Flying Tigers actually is an example of China and US working together.
That's right.
In a very big war in World War II.
Yes.
And China actually and US established diplomatic relations during the Cold War.
Yeah.
Those were the moments that China and US working together towards a benign way.
Yes.
But we've also seen ups and downs
Of
in
course.
terms of bilateral relations, especially
Yeah.
in recent years. We
Yeah.
saw one of the lowest points in bilateral relations. So what do you think the biggest two powers in the world, China and US, can work together to make benefits, more benefits for their own people and also for the humanity?
You know, just recently, Mr. Xi and Mr. Biden met, and they talked about having 50,000 students that would then come to China and come to the United States. Purposely being intentional in that, to have those students come together. I think China is a manufacturing power. America has an economy that is superb. These are the two most powerful economic countries in the world. They need to work together. I'm an educator. And I know that if we can get our young people, the next generation, to communicate with each other, they will find that there's more in common than there are more than our differences. I encourage us to do that. That's where I see the two can grow.
Right. Well, creating stereotypes is much easier than creating a very good communication.
Of course.
Indeed. Then, apart from communication, what do you think are the biggest hurdles or challenges in terms of a bilateral relationship between China and U.S.?
I think it's misperceptions. I'm just going to tell you, I think it's bad communication. It's misperceptions that people feel that China, which has an economic engine of its own, makes all the goods, and we buy all the goods in America. And that's not the way it needs to be. Both need to manufacture, they both need to have trade. I just think that there is an effort on our part, and I'm talking about, I'm going to say my generation's part, to make sure the next generation understands that there is more good than there is bad in these kinds of relationships. I think that if we are going to be successful in the next generation, for my grandchildren to be able to communicate with grandchildren here in China, then the doors must be open. The doors must be open, and we must have our universities communicating with each other. It's a good funnel. It's a good pathway.
Do you have a big confidence that the younger generation or the younger generation in the future can mend the relations between the two very competitive countries?
I have great hope for tomorrow. My own spirit and myself, and through my God, I know that there are better things available. But we have to allow that next generation the freedom to get together and understand each other. That will be the key. That if we isolate everyone, nobody gets that. We all just go back into our houses and we shut the door.
Yeah, that's right. And we shut our minds and vision.
That's it.
Well.
That's right. And we can't we can't depend upon technology. Technology is wonderful, right? But we can't just depend upon Zooms and other kinds of video conferencing to say, oh, I met with some Chinese today, or I met with some Americans today. That's not the same as having, as we say in the States, breaking bread, where we break bread and sit down and have a good discussion.
Right.
You have a philosophy that let's have some tea, right? And let's discuss this. We cannot just write a memo. We cannot just do an email. It has to be person to person.
Exactly. So we always say in China, seeing is believing. We must add.
There we go.
Talking, chatting,
That's
making
it.
conversations
That's it.
are believing as well.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very
Very
much,
much.
Dr. Spears.
Hey, thank you.
Very nice talk.
This is a
Pleasure
great
talking.
discussion.